Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video of mine. Today we'll be discussing the first match of the Euros today, Turkey versus Italy. And first off, let me just say I was right on my predictions. I've been saying this before the tournament even started. Turkey was going to lose 3-0, and they did. They lost 3-0. Um, but I feel like the game, despite the fact it was 3-0, it was kind of eye-opening if you think about it from both kind of sides. Um, and we'll get to that. We'll get to that point of why it was eye-opening and why I think it was a good match from Italy, but it could have been a more, I guess, productive or a stronger showing from them. But without further ado, let us discuss this matchup. So the first thing we're gonna see, of course, you see the score, and one glaring thing right now is the first goal. It was an own goal. It's very unfortunate to see that that happened. Own goals do occasionally happen, but for that to be the first goal that Turkey allowed in the 53rd minute, they were holding themselves really well. I think really realistically Turkey was playing a very strong game. I noticed in the first 20 or so minutes they were putting a lot of pressure on Italy. Now that doesn't mean they had many chances to score, but they were putting pressure on the Italians and kind of forcing them to, I guess, adapt to it. Pretty much their style of play in those first 20 to 30 minutes or so, right? It kind of forced Italy to shift things around. They really weren't, they didn't look comfortable, the Italians did. That first half, Italy didn't look comfortable. In fact, in my opinion, Italy didn't look comfortable at all until that own goal was scored. And that build up to lead up to that own goal was, I feel like, the first couple, I guess that was either the first time or a couple of times where Italy actually looked pretty strong, right? But before that, it really was kind of a. I mean, it was leaning towards Italy, but it could have probably went to a draw or at least a 1-0 win. The own goal, in my opinion, just sucked the life out of the Turkish team. They went all out, and it backfired instantly because they didn't do anything with those chances, and Italy was just ready to pounce on the Turkish side here. Uh, so when we discussed this here, the first half, like I said, Turkey was aggressive. But the problem with that is they were aggressive, they were putting pressure, but that doesn't equal chances, and that was the struggle. They didn't have chances, and if they did have opportunities, they never took advantage of them here. Um, I don't know why. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was jitters. The Italian need to have a solid defense with Chiellini and Benucci back in there, but I just feel like Turkey could have done so much more had they um, just taken more of a risk because they took one step forward of putting pressure, but they took two steps back by kind of playing it safe. Um, excuse me, because they would put the pressure on the Italian side, and then they would never do anything with those chances. They rarely took any shots. You can see right here, three shots in total in the entire game. So it's like you're taking three shots in the entire game, not three shots and a half or three shots within a span of like 20 minutes, just three shots in the entire game. So even though they were putting pressure on Italy in that first half and some parts of the second half until the own goal, um, they didn't do anything really with it. In fact, I think the pressure they were applying to the Italians wasn't to score goals. It was probably to conserve the tie that they had, the 0-0 draw. So really, it was more of a defensive game they were trying to play, and it was working up until that 53rd minute or so. I think it was a very, they were playing well. You could probably tell that Italy was going to score. However, I still feel like even had that own goal not happened, it probably still would have been a 1-0 or 2-0 game. I think that own goal though, because it ended up being 3-0. So that's something I noticed from the Turkish side of things. They played a very good game. They shouldn't be disappointed at all. I know the score says 3-0. The stats definitely show a lopsided game, but from my perspective, at least from that first half and not majority, but parts of that second half, Turkey was a very strong team, and they played very well. and they were holding them. They were holding their own. Um, Italy just couldn't find a break, or they couldn't take advantage of opportunities here, and so that's what kind of led to the like the first half draw, and kind of the first almost 10 minutes of the game still being tied. But now, if we're talking about the Italian side of things, it seemed to me it was more of them just trying to find their rhythm. That first half, they had chances, they had opportunities, but they couldn't really take advantage of it here. You could see they had 8 shots on target here, 11 were off, and 5 were blocked. Um, yeah, clearly Italy was. I feel like Italy was more aggressive offensively, you know, and it shows. The score shows it, but to me, that first half was kind of like their opportunity to find the rhythm and try to find what works and what doesn't work. And eventually, they did find that out. They were just the counterattacks were so well executed. They were just beautiful. To me, if they could play like that against Switzerland in the next game and against the Wales, I think they're gonna easily win this group. I already predicted them to win the group. Um, we'll see what happens though. So Italy kind of had a weak, not a weak, but a very interesting first half because it didn't go the way they would have liked it to. They had chances, and I guess that's all you could hope for in the first half of the first game of the Euros. And now they have found the rhythm. I think they're kind of comfortable now. They know what kind of works. But I feel like that first half was a little shaky in terms of scoring chances because they had opportunities, they just couldn't capitalize on them. Um, whether it being the shots were off target, that was just a save, or they just wouldn't take the shots. There were some times where Italy had possession in that first half and they were on the attack and they just didn't take a shot. They had a shot outside the goalie box and they just weren't willing to take it in that first half. So, you know, probably was just that first half, first game jitters, but they found their groove and eventually won the game 3-0. It was a solid performance from them. If I were to rate it, be an 8 out of 10. Is it very convincing? If they play like they did in the latter half of the second half, yes. But if they play like they did that first half, they're not gonna really convince anybody because if they have to play France or Germany or England or Spain, Sweden even, those teams like that, I don't think that first half performance is gonna cut it. They gotta play consistently. They gotta play like that. Second half, the latter half of that second half. Um, so now let's really just discuss the stats of this here. As you could see, it was clearly in favor of Italy, and you didn't need to see the possession to see that it was in Italy's favor. The score tells the story, but the score, I think, and the possession don't really show how intense Turkey was playing. Um, to me, a huge thing they got to improve on when they play Wales is actually attempting to have more attacks because they were playing a very defensive game. And I know it's Italy; they didn't want to concede, and unfortunately for them, they did, and that kind of led to their demise. So that it's an understandable strategy, but I feel like you can't play a kind of fearful game. And I know I sound like I'm contradicting myself. Oh well, I just said they were playing aggressive and putting pressure. How could they be fearful? Because, like I said before, the pressure wasn't to try and score. The pressure was to try and keep the score the same. The pressure was to keep it 0-0. The pressure was just to contain Italy. They weren't trying to stop them. They were trying to at least contain them, and it worked for a good part. But it didn't. It wasn't going to hold on forever, and I think everybody knew that. I think it was going to be at least one or 2-0. Uh, so that strategy on Italy didn't work. It's not going to work on Wales, and it's not going to work on Switzerland. It's probably gonna break eventually throughout the game. They have to try and put more pressure offensively, not just to contain a score, not to contain a team, but to have a purpose behind it. Because to me, when you're playing a defensive game, there's got to be a purpose behind it. What are you trying to defend? When if it's a 0-0 draw, that's not defending anything, because there's nothing to defend. Nothing has changed. Nothing has happened. How can you defend something that hasn't happened yet? You could defend a lead, that's great. But to defend a 0-0 tie, there's no reason to. That's just admitting you're playing scared. Um, and the fact that they played aggressive, they should have attempted some chances. I mean, for them to only have 3 shots and only, I mean, none of them were on target. It says here, so I don't know. They're all blocked. It was a good game, I think. Um, and the defending side, I don't know. Another topic we can discuss here now that I see it is the referee. There are some calls that he should have made, they didn't. One clear example is right before the end of the halftime. It was a penalty that should have been. It was a handball inside the penalty box, and the referee said no. And then they did a potential VAR check, and then they didn't do anything with it, and they were just like, no, it's not a penalty. And you look at the replay; it's clearly a penalty. The ball clearly hit the Turkish defender's hand, and you're just wondering, why is VAR even there if they're not gonna do anything about it? It was clearly a penalty. Overall, didn't affect the game, but it, you never know. I mean, a goal, one goal can make a difference, you know. So I don't know why they didn't decide to give out, why they didn't, give them a penalty, why VAR was even, used for a potential penalty check when they didn't even check the penalty. I don't know. Fouls committed. I mean, they didn't give out yellow cards until like the last 10 minutes of the game, so that was kind of interesting to see. That kind of hurts Turkey in a way because you get another yellow card, now you can't play the third game. So they got to play very. I think those players have to play cautious now. Don't like let it affect you, of course, but it could be a factor in the game against Wales. But overall, I feel like this was a solid performance from Italy, Turkey as well. Despite the fact here, they got to put that aggression towards more offense, as opposed to just trying to preserve a lead or a tie that they don't really. You can't really preserve that for 90 minutes because that's almost impossible. I mean, it's been done before, but it's almost impossible to do that. And of course, if you look at the group standings, Italy's and Turkey are the only teams played. These two teams played tomorrow, Switzerland and Wales. Uh, so I said it was going to be a tie. Anywho, that's my thoughts on the Italy-Turkey game. Hopefully, Turkey can bounce back against Wales in their next game, and I think Italy's going to do well against Switzerland. But they gotta play consistently like that, like how they did in the second half, to be a huge threat. Because right now they are a threat, but to be a real threat, to be a dominant force, they gotta do that. They gotta play like that. And I know, Portugal won in 2016, and they weren't considered a threat because of the way they played. But that's one in a million, I think, for them to get all the way and win it. I'm not hating on them. I think Portugal's a great team. They got great talent, but it was circumstances that fell into their laps. It's the right place at the right time, and I don't know if there's chances of that happening again. And Italy, it's not like they played horrible, but if they kind of play like they did in the first half, I'm not saying the first half was horrible, but it was just like it looked like they were a little afraid, and like I said, it could be just because it's the first game and all, but hopefully they just got those jitters out and now they found their rhythm and going into that game against Switzerland for Turkey, just more offense. Their defense was almost solid up until their own goal and it just kind of fell apart. But it should be an interesting week. And so following up here tomorrow, I'll be discussing the next games here, the Wales, Switzerland, Belgium, Russia, and Finland, Denmark. I'll be discussing those games as well, just like I did here. And so hopefully you guys enjoy this video. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. And